The NFL's top Thanksgiving performances. Remember that time? There was a time, not too long ago in fact, when it was a special occasion for the NFL to play on Thursdays. It happened only on Thanksgiving, usually with games in Detroit and Dallas, and over time the event provided some of the greatest individual performances in NFL history. As we prepare for the 2017 version, let's take a closer look at 10 of them. Research was aided by the database at Pro Football Reference and, mostly, limited to games played after the 1970 NFL/AFL merger. 1976, 273 yards for O.J. Simpson. In his 7th season with the Buffalo Bills, and 2 years removed from his 2003-yard season, Simpson broke his own NFL record for rushing yards in a game. His longest run was a 48-yard touchdown in the third quarter of the Bills' 27-14 loss to the Detroit Lions. The NFL record stood for a year, until it was broken by the Chicago Bears' Walter Payton, and it now stands at number 6 on the all-time list. 1945, Jim Benton has 303 receiving yards. Playing for the Cleveland Rams, Benton became the first professional football player to eclipse 300 receiving yards in a 28-21 victory over the Lions. He caught 10 passes from Hall of Fame quarterback Bob Waterfield, including a 70-yard touchdown, and for good measure had an interception while playing defense. The yardage record stood for 40 years and remains one of only 4 300-yard receiving games in NFL history, a notable achievement given how the game has evolved in the modern era. 1994, Dave Krieg's perfect passer rating. Having replaced injured Lions starter Scott Mitchell earlier in the season, Krieg completed 20 of 25 passes for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns, without an interception, in a 35-21 victory over the Bills. Based on the perfect 158.3 passer rating, at least, it was the best game of his career. There have been 52 perfect passer ratings in NFL history, based on at least 10 attempts. Krieg, 36 at the time, led the Lions to a 5-2 record and a spot in the NFC playoffs. He would go on to play for 3 more teams as a backup before retiring after the 1998 season. 2010, Tom Brady matches Krieg. Brady completed 21 of 27 passes for 341 yards and 4 touchdowns in the New England Patriots' 45-24 out of the Lions. The Patriots actually trailed 24-17 midway through the third quarter before Brady threw 3 touchdown passes, of 79 and 22 yards to Deion Branch, and 16 yards to Welker, in the span of 13 minutes, 30 seconds. It is one of 2 games that Brady has achieved a perfect passer rating. The other, a 6-touchdown performance against the Miami Dolphins in 2007. 1977, Bob Grease throws 6 touchdown passes. Grease tied an NFL record at the time for scoring throws, which included 3 to Nat Moore, in the Miami Dolphins' 55-14 demolition of the St. Louis Cardinals. The game was played at St. Louis Busch Stadium, on a 39-degree day that wouldn't have been predictive of such a scoring output. Grease made a total of 151 regular season starts in his Hall of Fame career. This game was one of 4 in which he threw more than 3 touchdown passes. 2004, Peyton Manning matches Grease. Manning also threw 6 touchdown passes in a Thanksgiving game. This won a 41-9 victory for the Indianapolis Colts over the Lions. The scores accounted for more than a quarter of his 23 completions and represented one of 9 games in which he threw at least 5 touchdown passes. He shares the current NFL record for scoring passes in a game, 7, with Nick Foles, and owns the record for career touchdown passes, 539. 1998, Randy Moss catches 3 long touchdowns. As he continued his breakout rookie season, Moss caught touchdown passes of 51, 56 and 56 yards in the Minnesota Vikings' 46-36 victory over the Cowboys. They were his only catches of the game. The performance was one of 6 occasions in post-merger history when a player amassed at least 160 yards on 3 or fewer catches. No player has ever caught more than 3 touchdown passes on Thanksgiving, and Moss' 163 receiving yards ranks 7th among all Turkey Day performances. 1998, Troy Aikman throws for 455 yards to keep up. Down 21-6 to the Vikings thanks in large part to Moss, the Cowboys were in catch-up mode for most of this game. That led Aikman to set a Thanksgiving Day record, and establish a career high for passing yards. It was the only 400-yard game of his Hall of Fame career, and it came on a personal record for attempts, 57, and completions, 34. He managed only 1 touchdown pass, however, and the Cowboys never got closer than 10 points after the 21-6 deficit. 1979, Earl Campbell rumbles for 195 yards. Campbell was in his second season with the Houston Oilers when he made his only Thanksgiving appearance, and it was memorable. Even after logging 264 carries through the Oilers' first 12 games, Campbell ran 33 times for 195 yards, second only to Simpson's 273 yards on Thanksgiving, and 2 touchdowns in a 30-24 victory over the Cowboys. One of the scores came on a 61-yard run. This game was one of 20 in which Campbell had at least 30 carries. 2015, Ziggy Ansah has 3.5 sacks. Ansah was a singular terror to Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Mark Sanchez in the Lions' 45-14 victory. He also exacted a measure of draft day revenge, doing most of his damage against offensive tackle Lane Johnson, whom the Eagles drafted 1 spot above him in 2013. Johnson, now one of the NFL's best tackles, might have gotten the final laugh over Ansah, who was faded over the past 2 seasons. Ansah remains one of 2 players to record more than 3 sacks in a Thanksgiving Day game, along with the Cowboys' Eric Ogbuagu in 2004. Cowboys continue to make wrong kind of history in loss to Chargers. Arlington, Texas, the Dallas Cowboys season is in a complete free fall. Everything needs to be questioned following their 28-6 loss to the Los Angeles Chargers on Thursday. Has Jason Garrett lost his team, and will it cost him his job a season after he led the Cowboys to the best record in the NFC? If he continues as the coach, are there significant changes on a coaching staff that has seen their last 3 opponents outscore them 72-6 in the second half? Is Dak Prescott, who followed up his first 3-interception game with another 2 interceptions after having just 4 picks in 2016, really the quarterback of the future? Is Dez Bryant in his final days with the Cowboys? One question doesn't need to be asked: Jerry Jones will not replace himself as general manager. A season that started with Super Bowl aspirations has dissolved into a 5-6 mess in which the Cowboys can only be thankful that the New York Giants have been worse at 2-8. If there is any shred of good news, it is that the Cowboys actually scored a touchdown. It came with 12:48 to play when Rod Smith crossed the goal line for the first touchdown in 27 possessions dating back to the first quarter of the November 12 loss to the Atlanta Falcons. But the offense could not get out of its own way even with the return of Tyron Smith from a groin strain. Smith was flagged for holding on what would have been a 34-yard touchdown run by Prescott in the third quarter. On the next play, Prescott was under pressure and had to throw the ball away. With 7:41 to play, Prescott had an interception returned 90 yards for a Los Angeles touchdown. It was the 4th Prescott turnover of the season to be returned for a touchdown. But before people lay the blame at the feet of an Ezekiel Elliott-less offense, the defense did its best to make sure they got their share of blame. For the 3rd straight game, they had no answers in the second half. Philip Rivers, who threw for 416 yards and 3 touchdowns, led the Chargers on touchdown drives of 77, 92 and 75 yards. Los Angeles had 8 passes of at least 20 yards in the game. On the Chargers' 4th possession of the second half, they took mercy on the Cowboys, taking a knee at the Dallas 3 in the final 2 minutes. In the second half of the last 3 games, the Cowboys have allowed scores on 9 of 14 possessions. This is how bad things have gotten for the Cowboys. It is the first time the Cowboys have been held to fewer than 10 points in 3 straight games in franchise history, according to ESPN Stats and Information. It is the 3rd time they have had 4 losses of 20 or more points since Jerry Jones purchased the team in 1989. It is the first time since 2004 they have had 3 straight losses by at least 20 points. The Bill Parcells Cowboys lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, 26-3, Philadelphia Eagles, 49-21, and Baltimore Ravens, 30-10, on their way to a 6-10 finish. The only other time the Cowboys had 3 straight losses by at least 20 points came in 1960, the first year of the organization's existence. With 5 games left to play, everybody might be coaching for a job, here or elsewhere. Philip Rivers throws for 434 yards as Chargers keep playoff hopes alive. Dallas, in his first game on Thanksgiving Day, Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Philip Rivers put on a show. He threw for 434 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 28-6 victory over the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. With the win, the Chargers improved to 5-6, inching closer to a .500 record for the first time this season. The Bolts also firmly remain in the postseason conversation, just a half game back of the Baltimore Ravens, 5-5, for the final wild-card spot in the AFC. The Chargers, who host the winless Cleveland Browns next week at the StubHub Center, have now won 3 straight and 4 of their last 5 games against the Cowboys. Rivers led the way for the Chargers, completing 27 of 33 passes. Rivers was not sacked and finished with a 149.1 passer rating. The last time Rivers threw for over 400 yards was on October 18, 2015, when he threw for a career-high 503 yards in a 27-20 loss at Green Bay. It's the 9th time Rivers has thrown for at least 400 yards. According to the Elias Sports Bureau, Rivers became the 2nd player to throw for 400 yards on the road on Thanksgiving, joining Kirk Cousins, who threw for 449 yards in a 31-26 loss to the Cowboys last year. For a 2nd straight week, Rivers' favorite target was Keenan Allen, who finished with 11 receptions for a career-high 172 yards, including a 42-yard touchdown. Tight end Hunter Henry totaled 5 receptions for 76 yards and a score. The Chargers also forced 2 Dak Prescott interceptions, including a 90-yard pick-6 by Desmond King. In their last 7 games, the Chargers have forced 17 turnovers and recorded 17 sacks. Rivers improved his record to 3-0 against Dallas. The Cowboys are one of 3 teams Rivers has never lost to in his career. The others are the 49ers, 3-0, and Giants, 3-0. Along with playing on the road for the 2nd time in 3 games on a short week, the Chargers had to overcome some injuries. Dealing with a back injury, kicker Nick Novak pushed a kick wide right from 35 yards and pulled an extra point wide left. Punter Drew Kaiser took over for Novak, making an extra point at the end of 3rd quarter but missing the next 2. Rookie wide receiver Mike Williams left the sideline on a cart with a knee injury and was ruled out for the rest of the game. Williams had been a limited participant all week with a knee issue. Case Keenum leads Vikings over Lions, solidifying NFC North grip. Detroit, Minnesota Vikings coach Mike Zimmer made waves this week when he detailed his favorite quality of his starting quarterback: guts, moxie, fortitude. However you want to phrase Zimmer's "he's got big balls" comment, Case Keenum continued to display why his willingness to take risks and give his playmakers a chance is a major reason the Vikings extended their win streak to 7 games Thursday with a 30-23 victory over the Detroit Lions. "Case is playing outstanding," Zimmer said after the game. "He's a great competitor, studies his rear end off, works extremely hard. Today, he seemed like he was more settled. There's times when he gets a little bit excitable and kind of goes off the reservation a little bit. But today, even throughout the course of the game, he seemed like he was in a pretty good mindset." Statistically, his numbers in the first half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his first win of the season, are his best so far, but Keenum played one of his most complete performances to date, making some exceptional throws in the first 2 quarters and serving as the catalyst in building a sizable early lead. It started on the Vikings' first drive by gaining 3 first downs, and he remained accurate under pressure. Keenum didn't turn the ball over as he completed 21 of 30 passes for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns. In what's been the basis for his success this season, the quarterback beat the blitz after being pressured by Detroit on 33% of his dropbacks, according to ESPN Stats and Information. Keenum's 9 passing touchdowns against the blitz this season are more than he did in his entire career. Thursday's win was the 3rd time this season where Keenum has thrown multiple touchdowns against the blitz. Being able to make throws in the face of pressure, whether it's from a team's standard pass rush or when they bring in extra defenders, is something Keenum takes pride in. His mobility remains one of the Vikings' biggest assets. "It's a lot of drill work, being able to move in the pocket a little bit, keeping your eyes downfield," Keenum said. "It's trusting your guys. I have a lot of trust in my guys out there catching the football. Kyle, Rudolph, Adam, Thielen, Stefon Diggs, across the board. Jarius Wright made some big plays today. I love those guys. I trust those guys, and when you have that trust, it helps." Keenum was terrific at sensing pressure, confidently climbing the pocket and scrambling to keep drives alive. He used a play-action pass to hit a wide-open Rudolph for the first score of the game. He then relied on the option to run in his own 9-yard score on the Vikings' next drive. "He has used his legs and he's done that throughout the season," Zimmer said. "You wouldn't necessarily say he's a scrambler, but I think he's smart. When he sees some kind of coverages that he has an opportunity to do, or maybe the best thing about him is he's got great vision. I think he sees a lot of things that's going on out on the field, and maybe the game has slowed down for him throughout the course of time that he's played." Arguably his biggest throw of the game came late in the 4th quarter with the Vikings ahead by 4 points. On 3rd down, Diggs ran a crossing route toward the near side of the field. Keenum zipped a pass while being hit by Darius Slay, which his receiver grabbed for a 7-yard gain and the first down. The drive resulted in a field goal. But on the Lions' ensuing possession, members of Minnesota's defense showed Keenum just how thankful they are that he's their quarterback when Xavier Rhodes picked off Matthew Stafford on 4th down, giving the Vikings the ball for the duration of the game. "I don't know who was in front of me to knock me down, but it was just a play we needed," Rhodes said. "A play we needed to gain momentum, try to win the game, to kill the clock, and it just was over." In 8 games this season, Keenum has gone from a career journeyman to proficient veteran. He led the Vikings to their most pivotal win of the season, crushing any desire for Detroit to come back and win the NFC North. With a 9-2 record, the Vikings are now 3 games ahead of the second-place Lions in the division standings. The path to a division title is crystal clear for Minnesota. After loss to Vikings, Lions' realistic playoff hopes rest on a wild card. Detroit, Matthew Stafford hobbled onto the field, his right ankle beaten up, with the Detroit Lions having a chance to tie late in the 4th quarter. Stafford had been here so many times before in his career. But he hadn't really been here with an injured leg before. and while the Lions managed to come back to keep themselves in Thursday's game after falling behind by double digits in the first quarter for the third straight contest, a comeback was not going to happen. Not with an injured quarterback against one of the NFL's best defenses. Thursday's 30-23 loss to the Minnesota Vikings left the Lions in a tricky spot for the final 5 weeks of the season. Barring a collapse by the NFC North leading Vikings, 9-2, the Lions, 6-5, are essentially playing for a wildcard berth now. And even reaching the playoffs as a wildcard team will be difficult for the Lions. Detroit has lost to Carolina, Atlanta and New Orleans this season, and the Panthers, 7-3, and Falcons, 6-4, currently hold those 2 NFC wildcard spots. The Lions players, though, still have confidence. We're still in good position. We've got 3 division wins, defensive tackle Akeem Spence said. We got a few losses in our division but we still got a lot of football. A lot of football to play and a lot of things can happen in 6 weeks. We can't get down on ourselves. How many points did they win by? 7. That's all right, man. We just got to regroup for Baltimore and get back on a run, start winning games and let the chips fall where they may, you know. So even though their schedule lightens up considerably in December, Detroit faces no teams over .500 in the final month. The Lions either have to win out or get some major help to reach the postseason for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. And not surprisingly, it was the same old story for the Lions for much of the first 3 quarters. Fall behind by double digits. Barely hang in while inching their way back. And then cut it to 1 possession early in the 4th quarter, where Detroit has been at its best. Minnesota, though, is not Chicago or Cleveland or, really, like any of the teams the Lions came back on throughout the past 2 seasons. The Vikings are a division leader. They are one of the best teams in the NFL, and one of the most balanced. But it leads to the question of why it keeps happening over and over again. Honestly, if we had the answer, I don't think we'd be doing it, receiver TJ Jones said. From what I've seen it's just attention to detail on all parts. We just have to figure out what's making us start slow and address it. You know, we can't fix one problem and fix it for 2 weeks and revert back to the problem that we were fixing before, because now we have a new problem or something. It's really just, I don't know how to explain it. This week it was a bit easier to explain the deficit and lack of a completed comeback. The Vikings' defense is one of the best in the NFL, a group that has given the Lions fits over the past few years, even in games Detroit has won. It has pummeled Stafford and shut down Detroit's offense over and over again. The Vikings didn't quite do that Thursday. Stafford had a pretty strong day pre-injury, including a 43-yard touchdown pass to Marvin Jones on the play he was injured, but late in the game they were able to shut down Detroit on 2 straight drives. That's always been the concern with how the Lions have played this season. Against bad teams, they could get away with falling behind early because they were the more talented team. That wasn't how it was against the Vikings. In a game that could end up deciding the NFC North and, potentially, a playoff spot depending how on December plays out, the Lions discovered why falling consistently behind was going to eventually catch up with them. And as a result, their playoff probabilities have started to shrink. Even if the Lions don't quite believe it yet. Man, we above .500 and it's Thanksgiving, we got a chance at the end of the day, cornerback Nevin Lawson said. I don't see we dug no hole, no nothing. At the end of the day it's a long season, anything can happen. You know, this team got a fighting spirit. We're going to fight until we can't fight no more. Games will show what Paxton Lynch can do away from controlled environment. Englewood, Colorado. As Denver Broncos quarterback Paxton Lynch stayed a few moments after practice Thursday to work through a few items on his to-do list with interim offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave, It was clear the Broncos are giving Lynch plenty of cram sessions to try to get the second-year quarterback ready for his third career start. Against the Oakland Raiders on Sunday, Lynch will become the third quarterback to start a game for Denver this season. The Broncos, who sit at 3-7 and have already played Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler behind center this year, have decided it's time to see what Lynch can, or cannot, do in game situations. Lynch, who started 2 games as a rookie in 2016 for an injured Siemian and then lost a training camp battle with Siemian for the starting job in training camp this past summer, missed 2 months' worth of practices after injuring his right shoulder in an August 26 preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. Practice is a controlled environment, so for a young guy to get better at playing quarterback, he had to play in real games where things are not controlled for him, head coach Vance Joseph said after the Broncos' Thanksgiving practice. And he has to make his reads, and he has to overcome adversity. Those sentiments echoed what Musgrave said Wednesday after Lynch's first on-field day of preparation for his first game action of the season. Musgrave was also asked what Lynch's best attributes are at this stage of his development as he prepares for Sunday's start. He's definitely tall, so he can see the field. He can throw the ball all over the field with his strength, Musgrave said. He just needs time on task. This will be good. This will be another step in his development of getting him on the field so he can get more time on task. You're only going to learn from experience. You don't learn from the sideline. This will be important for him. Given he's lost back-to-back training camp competitions for the starting job, with 2 different coaching staffs, Lynch was asked this week if he felt like this was a last chance of sorts to prove himself. In his 3 games, Lynch has completed 59% of his passes with 2 touchdowns to go with 1 interception and has been sacked 9 times. I don't take it as a last chance, but I take it as an opportunity to go out there and show that you can be the guy, Lynch said. They called my number, and I've been preparing this whole time, whether it was out here on the practice field or in the training room when I couldn't come out here. I'm confident in where I am and what we can do this weekend. There are certain parts of the growing pains that are expected with Lynch in an offense that just changed offensive coordinators Monday, even as he faces Raiders defense that is near the bottom of the league rankings in several major defensive categories. The Raiders are 26th in total defense, 27th in pass defense and tied for last in sacks. While that would seem to offer some optimism Lynch could have some early success against the Raiders, the Broncos want to see how he bounces back from mistakes and difficult situations in game conditions. Lynch often clustered mistakes in practice, especially in training camp, when one miscue would lead to another. Asked Thursday if a player could show coaches how he will respond to adversity in practice only, Joseph said performance in games is a true indicator. Because you never know how the game's going to look, Joseph said. And that's every young guy playing, from defensive back to offensive tackle to quarterback. You don't know how they handle adversity, how they bounce back, what their football IQ is like on game day. In a way, Cowboys playoff chase starts today. Arlington, Texas, the Dallas Cowboys season is effectively at stake today. At 5-5, the Cowboys are currently out of the playoff chase in the NFC. A loss to the Los Angeles Chargers would be their 3rd straight and put them under .500 with 5 games to play, and that would likely require them to run the table to get back to the playoffs. Would you feel good about their chances to do that? In a way, the Cowboys' playoff run starts now. I think we understand where we are in this season and how well we need to play, tight end Jason Witten said. Slow the run. Sean Lee will miss his 4th full game of the season because of a hamstring strain. In his absence, the Cowboys have not been able to slow down the run. Todd Gurley ran for 121 yards for the Los Angeles Rams. Aaron Jones had 125 for the Green Bay Packers. Ajayi had 91 yards on 9 carries in Sunday's win for Philadelphia as the Eagles finished with 215 yards rushing as a team. Today, the Cowboys get to attempt to slow Melvin Gordon. He is averaging just 3.8 yards per carry, but he has 2 100-yard games this season and 5 rushing touchdowns. Obviously a high draft pick for them, easy to see why, Cowboys coach Jason Garrett said. Very talented, quick-passed, explosive, can capture the edge. Just a really, really good natural runner. Good out of the backfield as a route runner, catching the ball. Can be a mismatch player at times on certain guys. A really complete player and a really good football player. What might have been, during the 2016 draft process, a lot of people connected the dots between the Cowboys and Joey Bosa. The Cowboys had him in for a visit and held a private workout for the Ohio State defensive end. The Cowboys had an obvious need for a pass rusher and Bosa was the best available, with Dallas holding the number 4 overall pick. Ultimately the Cowboys did not have the chance to take Bosa. He went number 3 overall to the Chargers, but the Cowboys would have selected Ezekiel Elliott anyway if they both were available at number 4. I thought I was going to be a Cowboy for sure, Bosa said. I was pretty convinced. That's where I wanted to be, originally. I thought it was a great fit for me. I liked it there. I liked the coaches and everything. I got picked 1, pick 2 early and the rest is history obviously. Bosa has been uber productive with 21 sacks in 22 games. The Cowboys just hope he doesn't have a sack today. The ref, with Jerome Boger serving as the referee today, the Cowboys can be expected to be penalized about 8 times against the Chargers. Since 2010, the Cowboys have been penalized 47 times for 343 yards in 6 games, with Boger as the referee. Their opponents have been penalized 34 times for 200 yards. The Cowboys have a 3-3 record with Boger as the ref. Here is a breakdown of the last game he worked, 2 weeks ago when the San Francisco 49ers beat the New York Giants.